Good morning, year six. I hope you're well and have had a good day so far. Today, within our English lesson, we're going to be thinking about um, developing our skills from the various poems we've read about World War One, and thinking today about using similes and starting to plan as part of that process our own traditional sonnets, our own 14-line poem, detailing our experience if we were somebody who'd been to fight in World War One. Within our skills today, we're going to be successful today. We need to understand what the poems Rupert Brooke and Siegfried Sassoon did within Soldier and Trench Duty. We need to consider the messages that those two poems were trying to deliver. We need to think about how the poets have used similes within those poems, and we need to think about how we can practice using similes alongside rhyming couplets. So not just using similes on their own, building them into kind of a suite of the different devices of poetry that we as poets can use. Okay, right, guys. So thinking then going forward, and then we need to plan the elements that you as poets would like to include on in your poetry. Okay, so you need to start planning. We're not actually going to write a plan today. You're just going to start thinking about a plan in your head as you practice those similes and other devices in your skills. Right, a little bit of recall about World War One because a lot of our skills are going to be developed in World War One poetry. So we just need to make sure we're clear on some of the historical facts. So, are these true or false? Did more than 15 million people die during the First World War? Were trenches comfortable and safe? World War One began with just one man and his wife being shot. Is that true? Is it true or false that there was no actual fighting in Great Britain, so that most of the battles took place in France? And is it true that it was safe to be at home in Great Britain? What do you think? It's true that more than 15 million people died during the war. It's not true that the trenches were safe and comfortable. If you remember them, they were full of water, of rats, and they were deep. And also, they were full of mud. And if you put your head over the top, you could be shot. Now, although World War One began with that one woman and his wife, one man and his wife being shot, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, there was obviously, as we've discussed in history, lots of other causes that precipitated that fighting. There was no actual fighting in Great Britain. However, it wasn't necessarily safe to be at home in Great Britain because there were different situations which emerged because of that in Great Britain. So, for example, there were explosions in factories which made munitions, which made the bullets. Okay, so in this place called Ashton, 43 people were killed. And then the Zeppelin airships came and bombed and killed more than 100 people in certain issues. First thing we're going to do now is try and think of some vocabulary. This is a bit of a generation idea for you. You've got to generate some vocabulary. So if you look at that image at the top left, the people walking on the bridge within the trench. If you look at the people on the right, where they're reading to alleviate the boredom within the trench, and the guy on the right is looking at a periscope, obviously needing a periscope rather than putting his head over the top. Germans wouldn't shoot necessarily at a periscope because it wasn't something they could kill. But if you put your head over the top of the trench, they could shoot you and kill you. Looking at the soldiers on the bottom left, they're trying to delice their clothes. They're trying to remove the lice from their clothes. They couldn't get new tunics. They had to use the same tunics they had. But they're trying to get rid of the lice that was in their clothes. If we look at here, this gentleman, this soldier, is trying to walk through the sludge, the mud, the filth within the trench. He's trying to get by to avoid the mud and to move around the trench. You can see the soldiers here are having to eventually go over the top. How would they feel if their feet slipped as they stood out into the top of the trench and knew they were likely to be greeted with a barrage of gunpowder and gunfire? Here we can see that's the soldiers with their machine gun poking their heads out above, and you can see the soldiers got a gas mask on, but those soldiers shooting at the other soldiers due to the fact that they were getting over the top of the trench. If I think about this first one, I can think about how they were building up the trench inside, and they were using timber. So I've got a noun of timber. They're carrying it, so they're lugging it, and their feeling is to endure it. So I've got a noun, a verb, and a feeling. Timber, lugging, endure. For each of these other pictures, so the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other pictures, I'd like you to put a noun, a verb, and a feeling. Noun, verb, feeling. Okay. So try and do that as your first task, please. Noun, verb, feeling. What can you see? What's in there? What are they doing? How would they feel? Trench duty, then. That first poem we're going to think about from Siegfried Sassoon. shaken from sleep and numbed and scarce awake, out in the trench with 3 hours watch to take. So somebody's got to wait there for 3 hours to look to make sure no soldiers are coming from the other side. I blunder through the splashing murk, blundering through the water, not walking gracefully, blundering through, and then hear the gruff muttering voices of the men, crouching in cabins, candle chinked with light. Hark, there's the big bombardment on our right, rumbling and bumping the onomatopoeia, and the dark's a glare of flickering horror in sectors where raid the Bosch is another word like Hun from Private Peaceful. It was a rude word about Germans because they were the enemy. Men waiting stiff and chilled or crawling on their bellies through the wire. What? Stretcher bearers wanted? Someone killed? 5 minutes ago I heard a sniper fire. Why did you do that? Straight overhead, blank stars. I'm wide awake. Some chap dead. That story of somebody dying in the trenches here. And then the Rupert Brooke poem. If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. There shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed, a dust whom England bore shaped, made aware, gave once her flowers to love, her ways to roam, the body of England, breathing fresh English air, washed by the rivers, blessed by sons of home. And think this heart, all evil shed away, a pulse in the eternal mind, no less. Somewhere back the thoughts by England given, her sights and sounds, dreams happy as her day, and laughter learnt of friends, and gentleness in hearts at peace under an English heaven. Right, guys, today the skill we're thinking about is similes. Now, there's a few examples here, and you're going to be generating your own examples relating to how it would feel within those trenches. My mind felt like a piece of paper scrunched up very small. You can see this person's trying to perform, possibly based on their outfit as Robin Hood, but they can't remember their words because their mind feels like it's gone away. They're suddenly nervous with all the eyes looking at them. The lights were as bright as. They waited as silently as. The audience waited as silently as. With nerves, I was frozen like a. What? How could you complete these similes? My heart squeezed, or I squeezed the microphone. People stared at me like. What were they staring? People stared at me like I was wearing low clothes. People stared at me like they expected an answer to a question they needed to know the response to. The music teacher frowned and gave me a look that was so piercing I felt like I'd been sliced in two. So if you're sliced in two, are you happy? No, you feel like you've been cut in half because you're singing so bad. Their singing was as loud as a, what do you think, a trumpet, an elephant? What do you think? As loud as an army, as loud as a bombardment. They danced like, what's a good dance? They danced like Justin Bieber, or maybe they danced like Mr. Spring. They shouted like someone desperate to save a friend. Screeching like a newborn baby, acting like an idiot, or acting like a buffoon, acting like a child, acting like a parent. What's that? My insides felt like jelly again, but I tried to ignore it. How's this person feeling? As colourful as. Their clothing is as colourful as a rainbow, as colourful as a garden of flowers. Why is it colourful? They behaved like a. How could you criticise somebody? What are they behaving like? Do you shout them out as we go through? As cramped as the place was as cramped, and this could be a really good one to use in your descriptions of life in the trenches. It was as cramped as what? It was cramped as a tin of sardines. What? Children were giggling like, probably not in trenches, but what might they have been doing like? This person's scowling like. Are they scowling like a happy person? Are they scowling like an irritated teacher? Are they scowling like a younger sister whose dress has been ruined by somebody else's party? And again, here we've got skin like. So the descriptions, physical descriptions here. Eyes as big as what? And you might describe the soldiers when they see the bullets flying towards them. Their eyes as big as what? Their skin. Like, how would they be chattering? What sounds would they be making as they squelched up, as they moved up? And that's where you could maybe use some of onomatopoeia to describe the sounds that they're making. How would they feel? Tears like. What are the tears falling down their face the night before they go into battle like? Are they like a waterfall? What are they like? Figures far away? Are those figures like matchsticks because they're so far away? Are the bullets? Are the bullets that going towards the soldiers going to be like? What's the sky like as you go over the top to face the German soldiers? What does the sound of the machine gun make like? How tight does your heart feel as you realise this could be your last day? How do you feel? What's the temperature like in the water? Is it as warm as something or is it as cold as something? There's lots of ways you can use like or as in your similes to describe what's going on. Okay. You might shake because you're so fearful before you open something. You might notice that the line where the bullet is on is so straight that it's heading directly towards you. How are you going to describe your feeling? Lots of different ways then you feel like you mentioned as you describe your feelings as a writer when you're using this. So thinking about these images, so this is the moment where the soldiers are going over the top to face the opposition, to face the Hun, as they were called, the Bosch, as they were called by the poets. How fearful are they? As fearful as what? And their feet slipping in mud like what? Rising up like, you see the soldier at the top he's got there. He's rising up. What's he rising up like? So I was trying to complete my similes here. Fearful as a mouse in front of a cat. So I was thinking again, something that could be really scared. Feet were slipping like fingers on a trapeze, because if you're on a trapeze and you're slipping, it also links to the idea that you might die, might the risk assessed you slipping. And then rising up, that soldier's rising up like a statue, falling as quickly as what? How quickly is he then going to fall? Now I've got cat and trapeze and statue. I haven't got rhyming couplets yet, so I was wondering if I could try and make them better. And what your job is going to be is to try and do two things. You're going to try and use these pictures of the lice, of the soldiers going over the top, as the soldiers walking in the mud within the trenches, and you're going to try and write your own poetic similes. I'd like you to write at least 4 pairs of similes, so at least 4 sets. So ideally 8 lines of poetry. You can use rhyming couplets. If you can use some onomatopoeia, it'd be fantastic. I'd also really like you to try and improve my section, my similes. Can you make it better? Right, guys, I look forward to reading those similes. So, like I say, at least 8 similes, please, to describe the lice going over the top, the fear, the trench, the life in the trench. At least 8 similes. Use some of that vocabulary that you will have generated earlier on. If I just go back to the earlier slide, that's a long way back, but if I go back, remember the images you've seen earlier on, and you've generated lots of lovely language relating to these images. And these images can be that which underpins the work that you're going to do today. Think about the lice, the soldiers, the machine guns, periscope, timber being lugged that people are enduring. Think about those languages that you can use, those language points that you can use in your similes, in your writing. Looking forward to reading those, guys. Thank you very much.